Hi there, knife people, hello lady and gentlemen. Today I am unboxing a great American knife, but before I get to the knife, let's talk about the box that it came. See how I had to destroy the box in order to open it? It's because these folks at PVK of Las Vegas, Nevada did a fantastic job packaging this knife. I mean, it was like a Fort Knox style box. Look at the cool card they sent me with a thank you note on the back directly from the owners of this company. And I checked, it's actually ink. Good old saliva test says it actually handwritten. Included in the box, there's another sexy card right there. I see the logic. Knives equal guys. Guys like pinup girls, so let's include one. But you know what, PVK? Some of us already have it taken care of. You should have included knife safety booklet instead. Write a comment. Let me know what you think about that. And then some information about the company. A sticker. Apparently, they have a blog. I'll check it out. And there's some contact info. I guess that's the card they pass at the shows. Okay. Let's get to the knife. Oh, and the reason I bought it from them is because my usual sources, although they had it for a blink of time, it disappeared very quickly. Reason is it's an Microtech MSI, a coveted axis log derivative knife. Let me get into unboxing. So what do you get for the price of a basic bug out? From Microtech. Typical Microtech stuff. Oh, more of the famous PVK packaging here. Thanks for caring, guys. And here's the knife. Come back, Mr. Bug Out. No, it's not an illusion. This knife will eat bug out for lunch. If this is a bug, this is the bug eater. Look at that. And let's do some size comparisons to the knives that are similar in size and weight. So first of all, a couple knives that are slightly heavier are these ZT 562 and Benchmade full-size Adamas. Definitely beefier knife, and blade lengths are roughly in the same ballpark. So good close comparisons. This one feels in hand very similar. It's slightly forward heavy, as is the MSI. This feels quite different because it's very handle heavy. So it's different ergonomics. It's also significantly thicker, while these two they're basically identical in most respects, except for the blade length or blade extension. Like if you put the blade to blade, there is a ½ inch difference. But if you put where you grip it, this knife gives you a 3/4 of an inch. MSI gives you a 3/4 of an inch longer reach. Another weight, close and weight comparison. They're roughly the same weight. This one just a hair under is this mini Adamas. And in the same ballpark is this Benchmade Presidio. Presidio is a military-grade knife. It's issued or procured by military organizations, and so it's a very tough knife, and this one is in the same ballpark. And while we're on the topic of toughness, let's look at the construction here. The construction here is interesting in the sense that while it is not a full liner, they extended it farther back, so where it matters, the forces on the knife distribute when you attacking something with force, chopping, batoning, stabbing. Forces travel along this spine and into the grip. And this is where the liners are on this knife. The front of the knife, where your fingers are, is hollowed out hard plastic. Reminds me some of the gun stocks that I've seen, or pistol frames that I've seen. Very tough, stiff plastic, and it's sculpted out there. I don't know if you can see. It's sculpted out so those ribs, they create this extra stiffness. But then if you look from this side, you can see this liner here. It nested in the grip, making a grip a lot thinner, but then it extends and goes under, and I'm not sure how far back does it go. quite possibly all the way back. Without disassembling the knife, I won't be able to tell, but it goes under and it's sort of attached or sandwiched with the grips and with that beautifully executed jimped backspacer. Look at the jimping here, nicely matched, beautiful. Nice, good size lanyard hole. I like this size because when I put a lanyard hole, if I put a lanyard, I go like this. I put the loop through and then I loop around and tie it like that. Anyway, very, very well designed knife, but not over designed and definitely not overbuilt. The steel on the blade is M390. Not a huge writing here. The etching is deep but tiny, and I love the way they inconspicuously put their logo here just to remind you what you're holding, as if that X did not clue you in. And speaking of that, remember where that came from, right? That's the motif on their OTFs. And let's compare this to while we edit. Same size. This Glycon is heavier, the blade is skinnier, but the reach of the blade is near identical to the MSI. Look at that. This knife here is over $500, and this knife here is $175. A huge difference in price, but not in enjoyment of the feel. And speaking of the feel, look at the texture. They are using regular Torx screws to assemble the knife. They stepped away from their proprietary triangular screw hardware, but to remind us where they are coming from, they put that texture that looks like their typical Microtech screws. And the very traditional clip that found its way from the Ultratech family. So let's talk about the lock. What I love about this knife, they changed the way the lock engages. As you know, on all the other crossbar locking knives, the bar rides up the ramp on the back of the blade. Well, here, instead of riding up the ramp, it kind of pushes down and forward because it's one solid piece of metal. Oh, how I wish I knew then what I know now. Please stay till the end of this video to see what happens when I test the lock. And it sort of locks in, and that spring, while not super tight, easy to operate with one hand. You know, at least for me, I'm a medium-sized hand guy. And look at this, bearings. I guarantee those are bearings, and did not look it up. And this button is super easy to operate. You see jimping here on the button, and I was able to sort of pressing down real hard, I'm able to just disengage the lock. Clearly, it's not the intent. I think the intent for this jimping is when you place your thumb on it, it gives you some kind of point of reference. It's not too slick. Otherwise, you'd be always sliding toward the blade. Let me pause here for a second. I track my stats on YouTube, and the stats tell me that people tune in and watch my videos for thousands of hours. Yet only a small percentage of them are subscribers. And without you guys subscribing and hitting a like if you're already a subscriber, YouTube doesn't know that you enjoy my content. And if it doesn't know it, it doesn't share it with folks like yourself. I did the hardware check, and believe it or not, this guy right here is T20. They put a T20 hardware, captive hardware, and I assure you, this is a T8 on the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's 8, and another 4. So it's 12 screws altogether, and they're all T8s. All T8s. You know who would be complaining and whining about these screws protruding and not being flush? Guys, stop that whining. They do it on purpose. They do it absolutely on purpose. The reason those are button heads instead of flush mounted screws is when it's in your pocket, it secures your knife. The seam of the pant, of the edge of the pocket, ends up bunching in here, right there, where I put this screwdriver tip, right here. And this is creating that wrinkle that will prevent your knife from falling out. Yes, if you sit in the office all day long, it doesn't matter to you. But I go out in the woods. I go and run around and I do things besides just, flicking the knife. And to me, it matters that I don't lose a knife, even though it's only, quote unquote, only 170 bucks. Folks, speaking of the price, does anybody think it's a freaking awesome deal? Does anybody think that this deal is the best, the absolute best deal on the market right now? To grab an American-made knife of this size and this quality of assembly and everything, everything screams quality. Look at this beef right there, beef. Beef with bacon, this is what this knife is. Now that I finished talking about what I love about this knife, I'm going to point out something that I will consider to be a design flaw. You see, on a traditional axis lock, there's this huge opening right here behind the lock. And there's no air gap here. And all Benchmades are like that. So when they are in a fully locked open position, there's this air gap. So I've been known to construct a lanyard with a solid insert in the tip. And what I do is, when I do some heavy duty tasks, I jam that end of the lanyard into the lock, like so. And that arrests the button and prevents it from unlocking. When you do certain tasks that potentially knives aren't designed to do, you mitigate the risk by jamming a solid piece of metal or some kind of hard plastic in behind here. Don't use wooden twigs because there's enough force, the metal will cut the wood and splinter it, and it won't work. Anyway, you need to use metal or plastic there. I digress a little bit, but this knife, Microtech, has a coil spring right there. You can see it right there. And they probably chose it because too many people whined and complained about Omega springs breaking. I have a lot of Benchmade knives and I use them hard, and I never had a failure of the Omega spring at all, not once. But some people complained and industry did this. And now they precluded you from securing this lock, from effectively locking it solid and making it safer to do heavy duty tasks out there if you have to. And Microtech is not the only company that did it. Here's a Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight that uses very similar lock design. They have a ball. These guys have sort of like a solid front of this bar. And both of these knives have air gap in front of the crossbar. You can see it right here. And no way to jam it in place to secure the lock. I had the same concern about the narrows. But if you watched my channel for a while, you know I subjected narrows to a very rough handling, very tough test. I batoned white oak and knotty branch at that, and the lock did not unlock on me. So I still wish all these knives had an ability to lock the blade in place by either inserting something or adding a spine safety of some sort. I don't think it would be too hard with this design. I'm not sure about the Spyderco. But these two knives could utilize the same type of lock that you see on the automatic axis lock knives. You can see it on the Auto Adamas. Here it is, and here's the safety. It locks. Did you see how this piece of metal just dropped and blocked the axis lock in place? That's what I'm talking about. I'm gonna say it's medium sharp. I am not saying it's dull. It's reasonably sharp. But I've been known to sharpen knives with cuts paper towel. When doing this type of testing, especially with the locks like axis lock and especially button lock, be very careful. Always wear gloves. Actually, don't do these tests ever. And if the sight of blood is too graphic for you, stop right here. Because Benchmade's unlock on the spine smack, I'm going to start with that test with this Microtech version of the crossbar lock. And that was a mistake. So here's the glove. And here's the cut. That's a little less than 24 hours later. I was debating for about 24 hours whether I should post the video containing this incident. And I realized that there is a valuable point to be learned for the entire community. And the point number one is, I'm not going to say don't do it at home, but if you do decide to do something like that, please provide yourself with a good set of protective gear, better than just a leather glove. It will not hold against a heavy and sharp blade like this one. Point number two, if you do equip yourself with good protective gear, please make sure that your health insurance is up to the snuff, because sooner or later, regardless of the gear, you will have to use it. And another point, looking at the knife as I did earlier in the video, I should have predicted that this is going to happen. And I already know what the solution for this issue should be. And in my next video, I'm going to take this knife apart and modify it so that it will not happen again. And it's totally doable, in my opinion. And of course, I'm going to retest it afterwards.